Hoorah. All right, everybody, welcome to Decentral. I'm Freddie, and that's Cam. Cam says hi. We're going to start off with our sponsor, Quadrica CX, the best Bitcoin exchange in Canada. Last trade was at $343. The low today was around $340. The high around $345, and I had very, very light volume in the markets today here in Canada at about 134 Bitcoins. So that's kind of interesting. It's been a very quiet day in Bitcoin land. Our special, wonderful guest today is the handsome Adam B. Levine in full beard and regalia, looking good. And yeah, everybody, welcome to the Central. Let's say hello to our friend Adam. Adam, hi.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe you just want to briefly introduce yourself and how this project Token Link kind of developed, and maybe to kind of give a broad, just like a very brief, broad overview of what exactly it is.
Sure. Yeah. So ooh, hang on, I got to turn down that echo a little bit. All right. So Tokenly is a project that I started formally in November of this last year, but it's really a continuation of the project that I've been doing for 2 years with Let's Talk Bitcoin. With Let's Talk Bitcoin, very early on, I noticed some ways in which tokens could benefit me personally, and first I grabbed on to the idea of tipping as a way to essentially bypass advertisers in order to connect content creators directly to their audiences instead of kind of this crazy roundabout that we have now where advertisers pay the platform pays the content creators, and the content creators then create content for the audience, who then patronizes the sponsorship. It's an incredibly indirect way to compensate for value. And so Bitcoin, with its peer-to-peer nature and very, very small minimum transactions, presents a lot of interesting opportunities for that. We were successful with that for the first year or so, but I really quickly realized that the problem was that platforms themselves, so like WordPress and things like that, did not incorporate cryptocurrency at kind of a basic level. And so because of that, a lot of the advantages that were offered to platforms that could incorporate it really were not being, were just like, it was hard. It was really hard. And so most people in practice didn't do it. So I gave a talk back in New York, my second conference that I spoke at on the Bitcoin topic, on essentially that, on reinventing the media model with a project that at the time I called Project Watershed. And there were a lot of ideas baked into it. One of the things that's really interesting that I realized you could do kind of early on that nobody's done yet still is take Bitcoin like sales modules and replace advertising modules with them, because an advertising module is really similar, like a display ad, on the internet, is really similar to a billboard, or something that like can educate you about a product, might interest you in a product, can tell you where to get the product, but at the end of the day, it can't actually sell you the product. You have to go and do that somewhere else. And so especially if you look at the way that display ads are effective, they are most effective on sites like Wikipedia, where people go and they just bounce off it. They go, from a search result, and then they, they identify this is the thing I want to know, and then they're off the site. But if you go to a community site like Let's Talk Bitcoin, then the draw of ads are much less, because people are on the community to actually participate in the community. And so in practice, you find that community sites running these types of ads don't really do as well, because the click-through rates aren't as good, because people actually want to be on the site, as opposed to, well, I'm leaving Wikipedia anyway, so who cares if I go there or back to a blank page. So there's just a lot of stuff like that. That's like one of a lot of different examples that you can draw from. So tokens entered my kind of awareness. Well, first off, anyways, I can give the longer story later. The short story is that tokens introduce an incredible number of possibilities, and there are a lot of them that I'm really, really interested in. They open up new types of commerce that right now just isn't really available on the internet, because we don't have access to things that look like real ownership. And because you don't have real ownership, then it's really hard. Like, you can have affiliate relationships, but that's really about it. So when you introduce tokens into the environment, because tokens operate on a layer that is above whatever company is issuing them, you have all of these kind of neutral features baked in that then can be used to the advantage of whatever the given project is. So that's a lot of words. I think that probably the best way to kind of intro the basic concepts is to go through that 9-minute video that I did just 2 days ago, actually, for an article that's coming out, the first article on Tokenly. And that'll kind of give you guys an idea of the 3 tools that we've created so far to enable tokens, and then we can talk about why somebody would want to use tokens if you guys want to dive into that, or we can talk about more advanced use cases too. The stuff that we've created is as simple really as it's ever going to be. These are very much basic component level building blocks. So you know, I'm excited because it's taken us a long time to get to this point, and now that we're here, we've seen a lot of interest from people, both in the cryptocurrency, you know, like they already have some type of token and they just haven't really had a way to you know, interact with people with it outside of these kind of manual types of situations, or for people who just have a business and would like the advantages of doing that. That's really what I'm most excited about, is not the cryptocurrency projects, but the people who are just normal businesses that can add a token in to represent their product or service and kind of be sucked into this ecosystem of tokens and Bitcoin. So I'll let you guys do that.
Okay, so I guess we should watch the video. Here we go. Let me just share the screen. And Jeep. Wait, oh, this one. Peter is awesome. He keeps me on my toes. And an F11 it. Uh-huh.
Hi there, my name is Levine. I'm one of the founders at Tokenly, and today I'd like to show you the Tokenly Alpha ecosystem that we rolled out at the beginning of July. So first off, I want to mention that Tokenly is a fully open source project. We are intending to make money providing hosted services, but we've been working now for quite a while and have just about 30 different components at our github.com/Tokenly repository. You can find Swap out there, you can find Token Slot 10, you can find our wallet, you can find literally everything that we're creating there. Everything is released under a GPL. This is one of our tools. This is a tool that's called Tend or Token Slot, depending on what type of version you're using of it. If you integrate it into your website, it's called Token Slot. If you use the standalone version here, it's called Tend. So basically what this allows is for anybody who has tokens to use them to spend on things. Tatiana Moroz, who's a singer and songwriter, set up this page, and it allows anybody who has either LTB coin, Tatiana coin, or Bitcoin to buy her music from her, and then she sends it to you. And in the future, it'll be sent automatically, or it'll download in your browser. But for now, this is it. So we're gonna buy some Tatiana coin from Tatiana, but we're gonna show that in just a second. Okay, so this is what a 10 page looks like when it's embedded on your website. In the future, again, we'll have much better integration with websites like this, but for now, you can still do everything here. You can still pick everything, you can redeem, and when you pay, it will actually be paying to the service, but it'll be happening through her website. So that's a cool feature of just kind of the way that Bitcoin services work in general. Okay, so here's Tatiana's swap bot, and we can see that it's got some information over here. This bot is ready to swap Tatiana coin for LTB coin, Bitcoin, or other valuable tokens. And it tells the price. It says that Tatiana coin has a value of 15 Tatiana per single song download and 150 Tatiana coin per full album download. And they cost about 5 cents each right now. So we're going to buy 150 so that we can do that. So I will put in 150 into the calculator here. I can decide again to either pay 0.03 Bitcoin or 67,500 LTB coin. I think that's worth about $7 right now. So I can click that. It says waiting for 67,000 to begin the swap, send 67,000 LTB coin. So I copy that. I go to my wallet here. This is the Tokenly Pockets wallet. It's available on the Chrome store at pockets.tokenly.com. And this is basically a Bitcoin plus tokens wallet that allows you to do a couple of cool things. One is it allows you to name your addresses. So instead of dealing with the addresses, you are actually dealing with something named that you can remember, hopefully. Another cool thing about it is it makes it really easy to deal with tokens. We're going to send, I think it's here, let's check. No, don't have enough LTB coin there. Okay, I'll find 67,000 LTB coin. Okay, I think that there will be some here. Okay, so you can see all the tokens I have there. I have quite a lot of tokens. Here we go. Okay, so a lot of tokens there. Paste in the address, and then 67,500 LTB coin. Click send, and it sends it. It's still sending, send. Okay, and what actually, there it goes, it gets picked up. What actually is happening here is this is doing all of the cryptography in your browser itself. So your private keys never leave your browser. It's a very safe way to work with Counterparty and Bitcoin. So we purchased 150 Tatiana coin. Well, I can just enter my address here and click, And this will keep me informed. So we still have to wait for a couple of confirmations, and you can see out here received 67,000 LTB coin with 0 confirmations. Okay, so we still have to wait for a couple of confirmations because the Bitcoin system needs to really verify that this is a real transaction. But in about 2 or 3 confirmations, I should have these available in my wallet. And again, because I've given my email address, I'm going to get emails updating me on every step of the way, with the final one telling me when my tokens are ready and waiting in my wallet for me to pick them up. So this is another swap bot. This is the Woodshares bot. It's another just bot that somebody has set up to sell their token for their project, Woodshares. This is using the distributed collaborative organization model that Swarm has been working on. So we're really excited to see how this goes. And again, you can see here that it's pretty straightforward. You can buy,
Interesting.
you know, if I wanted to buy 2,000 Woodshares, then I could spend this or this, and it would be very simple. Here's another one. This is for BitVPS. And basically, they've created a gift certificate token that allows anybody who possesses it to get $1 worth of credit with their service. And so you can see here, this is the redeem page. And again, this is on the 10. So you can see that you just put in your email address, you put in the email address or the VPS username of the one you want, you select the quantity that you want to redeem. And then down here, they only have one option for redemption. You can redeem it for BitVPS credits, which is the token that they're selling over here. And it's pretty straightforward. This is the Max Jackson bot. I want to show this one to you because even though it's a really new one, I really like this idea. This is essentially composer and engineer Max Jackson's bot. He sells a token here called MXJXN, Max Jackson, that represents 1 hour of his work or 2 hours of his work as a composer.
Huh.
So you can see over here, this is his redemption page. You just enter what you want, 1 hour of composition, or rather 2 hours of composition or 1 hour of editing. Pick your quantity, tell them about the project, select your payment option. Here you see that he accepts Max Jackson, Bitcoin, LTB coin, or XCP for that same time. This is FLDC. It's the folding at home coin. And it's a project basically that's been bootstrapped on top of this distributed computing project called Folding at Home. Basically, when you fold and you participate in this project, then you get FLDC. And to this point, it hasn't really had that much value, but now the FLDC community has been setting up websites and shops and things like that. And so I think we're even accepting it at LTB coin for some things. This is a really cool and very, very excited to see this sort of thing push through. This is a project called Spells of Genesis. And Spells of Genesis basically is a collectible card game in the same style as Magic the Gathering, mixed with kind of a more mobile vibe to it. The games are very short and they're very strategic, and it's really cool. The point is here that this is a card that you possess in the game if you have the token in a wallet that is associated to the game.
Interesting.
So I've actually already purchased this. There were 50 cards here, and I purchased it a little while ago for some storage. We can see on their page, I don't think this is publicly available yet, but it was shown to me this morning. It's very cool. This is looking at my wallet here. This is the wallet that I purchased that card with. It's telling me that I have 14% of crypto assets available. These are all cards that are available in-game when you have the token. So I have in this one, of course, a Storage X card, and indeed, I have access to it in the game now. This game, you can't actually play it yet. This is just demonstrating that you will have access to it. This uses a concept we call token-controlled access, and it's a really, really exciting concept because it means that you don't need to use a token for it to be valuable. You just need to possess it sometimes.
That's crazy.
So let's head back over to where we were purchasing from Tatiana. We can see we're still actually waiting for confirmations here. It's sent to my email already to let me know. You can see here you quickly received the first 3 updates designed to keep you informed. But that is the thing, is that tokens make sense when you don't want to use the thing right now. If you want to use the thing right now, most of the time it just makes sense to pay for it. With this in mind, I actually already, where did it go? There it is. Okay, I actually already picked up some Tatiana coin. So we can just kind of go through with this. So I'm going to pay 150 Tatiana coin. And again, remember, we're on Tatiana's website. So I've already filled this out of tokenly.com. Hey Tatiana, I love your stuff. There's a message that I'm sending to her. I'd like a copy of her for the New Year EP. I just want one. Click redeem tokens now. All right, and now I'm prompted to pay. So I can pay by copying the address. Let's see here. I think I have these tokens in this address.
Huh.
Yes, that's correct. So I have 212 Tatiana coins, paste in the address, and I'm going to send 150. All right, that's been sent. And there it is. Payment of 150 Tatiana coin received. The merchant will be notified upon confirmation. You no longer need to stay on this page. And that's it. Pretty soon I'll get an email from Tatiana saying thank you for making a purchase and sending me my album. And that's pretty much it. That's about all I've got to tell you today. One thing, if you want to get started with the swap bot, you can head to tokenly.com/swap, and that'll redirect you here, where you can sign up for your own swap bot. They cost $7 a month, and get started. Whatever your idea is, let's hear about it. Again, there are so many different things that people are going to do with tokens that we really just don't know what's going to happen. If you have an idea and think that this is a solution for your problem, contact us. You can contact me directly, adam@tokenly.com. And I hope to hear from you soon.
Oops.
Been doing more tutorials recently.
That was really interesting, man. Hey, Cam?
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we could get that swap bot on our website, on the Decentral Vancouver website.
Yeah, you can't embed the swap bots on the websites yet. You can embed the redemption forms. Right now, basically, we're building out the full page version because we're just building out the infrastructure for swap bots right now. Everything is API driven, so everything will be embeddable. And one of the particularly interesting parts about the swap bots is that the way we designed it was that there are multiple types of vending machines out there that you're going to start seeing coming out over the next year. And one commonality about almost all of them is that they have an invoice system, which means that when you want to buy something from them, you put in an order on a website or through an API or whatever, and then that order essentially generates an address for you, which you have to pay a specific amount to, and then when you pay that, then another address vends you whatever it is that you were trying to buy from the vending machine. The way that swap bots work is completely different than that. It uses the concept of like a native address, basically, where each swap bot lives on one particular address, where it keeps its vending inventory and where it receives payments to, or what we call them deposits. What that means is that uniquely, the way that you interact with a swap bot compared to any other vending machine is very similar to how the old Satoshi Dice used to work, where the way that you initiate a payment is just by sending Bitcoin or some type of Bitcoin transaction to it. And it reacts simply because it sees that transaction, and then when it confirms, it responds in whatever way the logic is determined. So what that means is that since you don't need to use a front end in order to interact with these things, you can actually have swap bots trade programmatically with each other in very complex ways that emerge very quickly when you start building these networks. And we're just at the very, very basics of this. We've just started experimenting with it, but we've already run a real-life test of somebody buys LTB coin from a swap bot with storage, and then the LTB coin bot, when it receives that storage, it forwards it on to a bot that buys and sells storage for Bitcoin, which then sends it back the Bitcoin to the swap bot, which then has logic in it that makes it so that when it has more than a certain amount of Bitcoin, it forwards that income on to a savings address. So that's like a really simple, one hop and back, but that happens entirely automatically, and in the future, again, it can be programmatic. Because again, another thing that we're looking at doing that I'm really excited about is, what if swap bots broadcast or announced every time they made a sale? What if they announced that they were active every 30 minutes or every 60 minutes, and other swap bots could listen to that and then react to that, either by lowering their prices or by saying, oh, well, when I get this token, I'm going to sell it to that bot because it's going to give me the best price right now. So the emergent complexity that comes from having simple and component-like tools, I think, is really going to start to blow people away, and that's really where I see the big potential here. We're building this stuff now because these are the basic pieces of a much more complicated picture.
Fucking interesting. Yeah.
I think it's interesting too. This stuff grabbed me by the absolute short hairs, and I've just been, running on this now for 6 months. I've put more money into this than I've ever put into anything, but I think the potential here is absolutely ridiculously huge. And again, the reason why we're doing it as open source is because it's a situation where there's no market for this stuff at all right now. So it's not like we're competing with anybody. We're not competing with anybody. We have to create every single customer that is going to exist for these systems. And so having more people trying to do that and trying to create this value, no matter who it is is a very positive thing for the entire industry as a whole. So I think that these first examples that we're going to see that aren't, you know, like, okay, it was a Bitcoin project and it got converted because, hey, it was easier to do it this way, but like the real, you know, like a merchant, I think that that's, we're going to start to see a lot of ideas spring off of that. And it's very hard to predict what's going to happen until we're actually there is the other thing. It's like, we're consistently wrong if we try to plan more than 3 or 4 months out.
Do you have any anticipation of what the SEC is going to think about something like this?
Yeah, actually, I feel pretty good about the legal standing on it. The lawyer doesn't like me to comment on any of this stuff because it is such a contentious issue. But if you look at the way that that gift cards are regulated, or gift certificates, it's a much, much lighter regime. And basically, it's just a requirement of you have to disclose any fees on a per transaction basis. You have to honor the value now federally for 5 years, assuming that the business doesn't go out of business. And then if you go through bankruptcy, then that kind of takes care of that. So, you know, the thing that differentiates a gift certificate from a currency is redemption, basically. Nobody offers redemption for a currency. People offer exchange for a currency, and it's based on the current exchange rate. With a token that is redeemable, or a token that is a ticket, or whatever, these are things that are sold for fixed prices by the people who issue them and then sell them in order to, you know, to power their specific ecosystems. So they don't look anything like cryptocurrency. They just use it and rely on it, frankly, as the mechanism by which you buy into these tokens. Because you can't do it with, you know, I was just talking to Tatiana about this today. She really wants to accept dollars because the hardest part about tokens and getting people to deal with them is that they have to get into Bitcoin first. And that still continues to be a hard problem. So we might actually wind up offering some of her token, despite my, you know, my suggestions to the contrary, for dollars, and she'll just kind of eat the risk. And for her, it actually doesn't matter that much because her token is for her music, which is not limited in supply as far as she's concerned. So, you know, there are meaningful advantages. And the other thing about tokens is everything is just so specific. It's really hard to have hard and fast rules because there are so many different types of use cases that can emerge from this. And yeah, so what do you guys want to talk about? You want to talk about redeemables? You want to talk about access tokens? You want to talk about charity coins or fundraiser tokens or what?
Well, I'm going to ask a question. So you started with this like a year and a half ago, and what turned you on to it? Was it one of your guests, or like obviously you go through everybody in the whole ecosystem, and how did this happen? Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you think that we go through everybody in the whole ecosystem. The reality is that as Bitcoin got bigger, my attention never grew. You know, like I didn't have more time on my hands, and so I think that just as individuals, we all reach a saturation point. The last, you know, 7-8 months, that's when I've been really working on this. In November, like I said, was when we started the project formally, and then we just incorporated in Delaware as a corporation because we're about to start our first funding round. Last month. So yeah, so we're continuing on that. How did I get into this? I realized in, I guess it was probably December of 2013 when I saw ProtoShares and the type of community that it was able to gather around it, and the type of excitement that was generated by that early period of just so much happening, and the type of commitment that it engendered in the people who were participating at that level. And I was participating at the time because I didn't want to use my standing in the community to make people, you know, uncomfortable, and I didn't want to endorse the project publicly because I don't like endorsing projects because it just gets you in trouble no matter what position you take. So I was working under essentially a pseudonym there, and I you know, acted essentially as a trusted party in the community and built up a reputation over about 2 or 3 weeks when there were no exchanges, and yeah, just had a really interesting experience that really got me thinking about doing a coin that looked a lot like LTB coin. And so I had at the time just assumed that we would be doing it with an altcoin. I just figured, oh well, you know, ProtoShares did it, it can't be that hard, we'll fork something, so it's not that big a deal. But I hadn't really settled on it. We weren't planning on launching it for a while. So in January of 2014, I don't remember exactly how I found out about it, but I learned about Counterparty, and I really, really liked a lot of the things that they were doing strategically. I thought that they were making a lot of good decisions, and I had been very unhappy with how Mastercoin had been proceeding along kind of the same lines. I felt like there were missed opportunities there. And so it was kind of just right place, right time, and we wound up being one of the, as far as Counterparty or other assets are concerned, LTB coin is the single largest use of tokens so far in the world. So I'm fairly pleased about that, but I have to say I'm also very surprised, because the stuff that we've built, like we built distributors very early on so that we could send out, you know, tokens to thousands of people without having to have it be a manual process, and other tools like that we've basically just made available to people who wanted to use them. But again, like as far as people actually using the protocol and really putting it into the hands of people, it just hasn't picked up as fast. And I realized that it was because no matter what you do, no matter how simple the project was, because there were no basic tools, it was really hard. And launching LTB coin in June of 2014, we just had our first year anniversary, really reinforced that, is that the token to a large degree became the easy part. And now that we had that problem solved, it wasn't that we had no problems, it was that we had much harder problems to solve that required us to actually build new types of solutions that didn't exist yet. So Tokenly emerged from that. I tried at first to get Jeremy Lamb, who runs a company called Vend, to create an auction bot for us, because I had it in my head that one of the primary, that since we didn't know what the price of LTB coin should be, because who the heck knows, since we're distributing so much, we were just going to auction off everything for LTB coin to the highest bidder, and so price didn't matter, it was all about relative demand. So we went back and forth with them for a couple of months on that, and they basically bogged down in funding, as far as I can tell. I didn't actually get an official story, but it never happened, the collaboration. And eventually I wound up hiring Devin Weller, who would become my CTO at Tokenly, to build that out as the kind of first non-platform piece of Tokenly. Another part of Tokenly, of course, that I did not talk about in that video, but which is probably almost more important than some of those things, is the Tokenly content management system, which is quite similar to WordPress in its capabilities, not obviously as developed. It's obviously a much newer project that has much less development time and money into it, but it integrates all of these things, and it integrates token-controlled access. And so for almost a year now, we've had forums, for example, where if you have a particular access token in a wallet that you prove to the website that you own by either signing a message or making a transaction, either way proves you have the private key, that you own it, and then you can access stuff on the site. And for the last 6 months, we've had a podcaster token, where if you do a podcast for us, you get one of these tokens, and then it lets you bypass editorial, because podcast posts don't need to go through editorial. It lets you use our Magic Words listener rewards program, and a couple of other things. Oh, it lets you access a private forum too. And so, again, the interesting part about this, once you get into it, is that those tokens, like a podcaster token, there's no reason why that can't work also on another site, because the token isn't owned by the platform. The platform is just looking at an address that the user controls. The user never loses control of their private keys. They just prove that they own it, and then we can just assume, oh, well, they own it, so anything that is in our system that corresponds with tokens that they've proven to us that they own, well, we can just assume that that's a permission that they actually have and give it to them. And then it's great because at the point that they, no longer have the token, like for example the podcaster token, right now we're just giving those out because we don't want it to be limited. But I really like the idea. What happens with podcasts many times is that there's an incentive. There's no incentive for somebody to stop, right? Because you get tired of doing a show and like you just keep going because, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? But if you have something that actually gives you the ability to achieve value with the token, right? Achieve value by being on a publishing network, for example, that is popular and that can deliver. Essentially, when a podcast joins LTB, most of the time they have a couple of hundred listeners, and we take them to a couple of thousand. So it's not like a big, gigantic, like you're a superstar now, but it's a huge bootstrap for people who are just getting started, and it takes you past that most difficult part if you're doing a good show. So I've started rambling here. I'll let you guys jump in.
Well, no, it's great, man, because first of all, it's nice to see you here, and also you have a beautiful voice. It's nice to listen to you. So do we have any questions for Adam?
I guess I have a comment that for a lot of I've seen, there are a lot of interesting parts of your project, but I can see a lot of inefficiency in the system. For example, if I want to use Tatiana coin to buy Tatiana's records, and I have to spend 20 minutes just purchasing the coins to receive them, and then send them, and wait another 20 minutes to get the record. I'd rather just use Bitcoin and get it done and over with, or something faster. So I wonder whether this possible to speed up the process, have something like shapeshift that, oh, I send the coins in, it takes care of that payment and pays directly in the same time as that process happens.
Yeah, so we're actually going to be integrating with Shapeshift in a couple of different ways. I think that project is very complementary to what we're doing. To answer your question specifically, I just think that you wouldn't use tokens in that situation. Because the token isn't necessary. You're going to buy the token so that you can then spend the token. Value is value as far as it's concerned. So the reason why you would want the token is reasons other than you want to buy the thing that it'll get you right now. Like, for example, if you wanted to fix the price that you're going to pay in Bitcoin, because you don't know if the price is $10 in Bitcoin, then that price is going to be constantly adjusting. Whereas if you have 150 Tatiana coin, well, that's a fixed rate. So there's no price volatility there. You remove the price volatility at the moment that you actually make the purchase. Essentially what tokens do, in the way that I like to use them, is they separate the point of sale from the point of redemption. And right now those are two events that are smushed up against each other because we have no good way to represent the debt of the thing that you have purchased right now. But adding a token means that all you have to do is see if they have the token. If they have the token and you created the token, then they must have gotten it from either you or somebody who you sold it to or gave it to or whatever, because otherwise there's literally no way that they could have it. So that's the real innovation, I think, that tokens add, is this ability to create distance between that. And once you've got that distance, all kinds of interesting stuff can start happening in that gap that is left. And you can do one thing that isn't in our system right now that is very important. We have the how, basically, at this point. But the why is still a little bit missing. And the why, to a large degree, and in most use cases, is going to be a discount program. Where the incentive, again, like imagine buying a website address, a domain, right? The only reason why you would buy a domain is because you have a domain that you actually want to purchase, because there's no way to buy a generic .com domain. You have to buy a specific one, or you have to not buy it at all. So if you're somebody like me who is going to register, between 30 and 50 domains over the course of a year, and I can get a 25% discount by buying them 25 at a time, then that's a reason why I would want to buy, like 25 or 50 tokens up front to achieve the best discount I can have, and then just redeem them as specific ones come up. But I've had the advantage of purchasing in bulk. And another thing that's interesting about it, of course, is that like a business like that could choose to pay somebody. Like they could choose to pay a contractor, or like if we accepted them as a sponsor, they could pay for our advertisement, essentially in domains that then we could resell and achieve the value, whatever value we're able to achieve. And the interesting part, of course, for the sponsor in this case would be that those tokens are issued by that sponsor, and so they can only be redeemed at that sponsor. So anybody who buys it isn't just buying a domain; they're buying a domain at that particular registrar that issued and sold the token initially. So there are, you start going down the rabbit hole, and there are a pretty ridiculous number of huge efficiencies that we just don't even consider because they haven't been possible because ownership didn't exist.
But that reason for buying tokens to have discount is exactly the reason I mentioned that, I don't want to buy the tokens first and then purchase something with the tokens, because that might give me a discount. But if I have to wait 40 minutes to do that, that's a bit inefficient in that way. But also, if there was an open market for such tokens, then it would be a bit like Purse.io or something like the Ripple Decentralized Exchange, where the value of the token is fixed basically by the market. You can tap into that at any point, so it wouldn't be really, there wouldn't be really that much
more liquid.
Well, it will be more liquid, but at the same time, the value of the token will be already at a discount straight off, because you wouldn't be buying it at the same price, like at 100%, because someone will be selling it to you at 80% because they bought in bulk. Therefore, it will only be worth 80% of its value.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think the situation is more likely that you would find yourself on a web page that is like a web page that you go to that is selling these things, and they're selling them to you one at a time for 10% under the retail price. And so they are on the back end purchasing them in massive bulk. Like again, I don't want to talk about this too much because I don't like getting into other people's business, but I did have a conversation with the folks over at Shapeshift about this, and I expected that they were not going to be interested in carrying any of these tokens because, again, like it seems like they've pretty much picked the altcoin market. But it's not the case at all. They are quite interested in these, assuming that they can be stable because of that stability. And I mean stable in terms of the protocol. The protocol Counterparty has been having a lot of issues over the last couple of weeks because there's a bug essentially in Bitcoin that is felt particularly bad by Counterparty servers, so it's been causing crashes and stuff like that. So Counterparty, not Counterparty, Shapeshift, if you look at them right now, or at least yesterday, had all of those tokens disabled. And we've had problems too on our end. But we're working with the devs. Anyways, I got off track. What was the actual question? Sorry.
Well, I guess it will be the general question.
The efficiencies.
Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, the inefficiency, whether Counterparty is the best platform to put it on, because
right now,
look at some other platforms. Like, again, I have experience with Ripple, so for me, that's the perfect example that.
It's the elephant in the room for me, because he's slowly re-implementing Ripple. Like
basically, because if you implement it on Ripple, you have decentralized exchange, so you don't need any of your liquidity bots that are just trading one coin for the other. Everything will be going to the same exchange. You could do payment, exchange at the point of payment. So when I send in Bitcoins, it gets converted to Tatiana coins, and Tatiana receives Tatiana coins. I get my discount, and it's the same payment, and I don't have to wait anything because it's at the moment of purchase. I can hold my coins in whatever I want, whether it's dollars or Bitcoin or XRPs or Tatianas or whatever, and I can still spend it as anything else in the system, again, without having to worry about exchanging it, because I just say, oh, I want to pay exactly this amount in this currency, and everything is getting taken care of.
Peter's trying to say is Ripple already offers atomic cross-chain transactions, which is kind of what...
And I actually know that. And we actually looked at it, and we talked to people. And the primary issue that we wound up having with Ripple was we felt like the company was an enormous liability. And we felt like the protocol had major mistakes made with how it was handled. We really didn't like the distribution of XRP. And, I mean, like, again, so, yes, their tech was good, but they have issues. And that was...
you know what, we agree there were a bunch of decentralists.
They still have a similar problem. I've been pushing for a long time for someone to just really fork Ripple, fork Stellar, but instead of doing the whole XRP, slow burn issuance thing, just distribute in proportion to Bitcoin holders.
I argue for a schedule. A schedule would have solved the problem as far as I was concerned, and they wouldn't. I mean, they didn't want to do it. So I mean, so that's the thing, is there's no schedule for Ripple. There's no predictability for Ripple. There's no so because of that, you just can't make any sort of decisions.
Right.
So that's really the issue that we ran into over and over again, and it wasn't just them. I mean, we looked at a lot of different protocols, and again, the goal with Tokenly is not to be just like a tool that's on top of Bitcoin or a tool that's on top of Counterparty. The goal with Tokenly is because, like, if you look at something like controlled access, the way that it works is entirely at the platform level. It literally does not exist at the token level. The token doesn't know what it controls. The token doesn't know what it gives access to. It's like a key. Somebody made it, and then they created a lock that also it fit into. So that's an important thing to realize about tokens, because it means that you can have as many protocols in a platform as you want. It just has to be able to understand it, and then it actually acts as a connecting layer for those tokens. So yeah, I mean, you're right, and I've thought about that lots of times, that, Ripple has done a lot of these things, and they had them over a year ago too. They had simple assets, and again, they had a lot of this stuff early, so it's not about their technology, it's about their politics, and it's about the decisions that they've made as a company that we disagree with.
But so
in their defense, it's a case of it's not like a fully pre-mined thing, because let's say I want to use that system to transfer $1 million to Africa.
Or to me.
Yeah, to Freddie.
Yeah, to me.
I don't need, say I want to do that with a Bitcoin or another pre-mined coin. I have to buy $1 million worth of that. If it's just the postage stamp that goes on the envelope, like XRP, if I want to use that to transfer $1 million, I still only need to buy like half a fraction of a cent of XRP just to do that. So I don't really care that they're still holding a lot and they could dump them on the market. Yes, I could lose my fraction of a cent that I paid for the postage stamp. But the point is the network still continues to run.
It's robust. Yeah. Interesting.
And it's not the only protocol where that's true. You look at something like BitShares, and they have lots of stability issues, but from a pure tool perspective, same Same kind of thing. We just wouldn't have to build many of the tools that we've built now. But we did because they didn't exist for Bitcoin, and because Bitcoin has the most, has the most going on right now. So that's been the thing, is, and again, the Bitcoin ethos, I think, is a really valuable one, where you have decentralization at the core of the model, and not just decentralization, but distributed decentralization. It's been interesting watching the block size debate for the last couple of weeks, or I guess a couple of months now, because they're both right. And, like, neither solution is wrong, and they all make sacrifices. So the question is, what is it that you're attempting to fix, and what is it that you're willing to sacrifice? The Lightning Network essentially sacrifices the non-inclusion of third parties in the protocol. And so that can be really good from one perspective, because it fixes the trustless part. There's no problem there. You don't have to trust the hub. And yet, these will be real companies. And yet, that is something that is very un-Bitcoin, because it means that you create these central points of failure. On the other side, you've got the argument that, well, if blocks get big, then it's going to become harder for nodes to run. And so that's a totally reasonable argument, too. And again, as somebody out, I'm on a connection that's powered by line-of-sight microwave. I totally feel those bandwidth arguments, and that's a real thing. So there isn't, I've been really wondering, actually, for the last couple of weeks, if maybe Bitcoin shouldn't just be 2 Bitcoins, and we should have one Bitcoin that goes in the direction that, one of these groups wants to go in, and the direction that goes in the other one. And I know that that's totally...
We were just talking about that today, actually, about the hard fork issue, right? But that's a crazy idea. Well, kind of. I mean, even to say Adam, like, we can call it Bitcoin A and Bitcoin B, or how would they even?
I think it would be Gavin Coin. At least that's what.
Gavin Coin. Oh yeah.
Some people
I think about it as Bitcoin Light and Bitcoin Dark, because I think that's what you'll wind up seeing is the libertarian side taking it back, essentially.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
Talking about Bitcoin, I got a question for you. This is a question from David Lyle, one of our local guys who bought us the chips today in the chip bowls. The question is about Bitcoin. Charlie Lee said that Bitcoin is basically Litecoin's test net. What do you think of that statement?
I think that there really isn't anything that Charlie Lee can say that isn't self-serving. Watching the price of Litecoin in the last couple of weeks has been amusing. And again, there's this assumption, I think, that what could happen is the Bitcoin bubble could burst, right? And suddenly Bitcoin isn't the thing anymore. And I think that could definitely happen, but it wouldn't be that everybody would go, okay, everybody, move over to Litecoin. It would be that the bubble would be gone. And the bubble that we're talking about is that one cryptocurrency is going to be the thing. Bitcoin has been winning so far because it started with all of the advantages, and it is the precursor. But at whatever point it goes belly up, if that ever happens, we're not going to be in a situation where there's one monopolistic cryptocurrency that takes over in this decentralized fashion. We're just going to see a total splintering, and there might be one that has 50%, but that'll be the high point, and everything else will go down granularly from there. So, life is about bubbles, and when they burst.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting on those still.
Yeah, it's like bubble, like in the bubble bath. Yeah. So okay, you brought up that you're going to market soon to sell some interest in your company. Are you looking at following in the footsteps of Open Bazaar? Are you talking USV? Can you talk about that at all, or is that all top secret?
Well, it's a little bit on the top secret side right now. We haven't started taking appointments yet. But basically, I'm just planning on going around and talking to all of the people who have been looking essentially for ways to get Bitcoin into, the retail environment. Because I think that at the end of the day, what we're really creating is a solution, or kind of like the end to the explanation that people have been giving to merchants for a long time now, which is you should accept Bitcoin because it's a better money. And what isn't said, or what isn't said enough anyways, is that it's a better money that almost nobody is going to spend with you, and so you're essentially wasting your time. But by explaining the value of creating tokens for the individual merchants that then essentially make their products and services completely compatible and open up these new opportunities for resale programs and bulk discounts and all these other things that can effectively turn users into resellers, I think that's a kind of a game changer. And again, you can do rewards programs with this stuff too. There's just a ton of stuff. So, there are a lot of people out there who have really been crunching on this idea and trying to figure out a way to solve that problem. And I think that this is probably the best solution that I've yet seen. So I'm very reticent about coming out and talking about any of this stuff because I really don't like talking about. I don't like asking for money. I've never asked for money for any of the stuff that I've done. You know, we asked for tips, and we've sold like, you know, a video pass once, but like that's about it. And so I'm very conservative when it comes to all of this stuff. I'm very concerned about appearances, and I really go out of my way to try and make sure that we actually have a solution rather than just more useless technology to pile on. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. I've never been in a CEO position before, so I'm looking forward to having these conversations.
Sweet. Very cool. Go ahead, Kiko.
Well, one use case that just struck me was the crowdfunding model, where let's say you've ordered a Pebble watch and you paid up front. You essentially get this token, and nothing's going to be delivered for a year, but you get, if you use a token system, you get the ability to sell your spot in that line, right? And it has a tradable second market.
And it creates interesting opportunities too. Yeah.
The second point was, you mentioned somewhere in the video, I thought I heard $7 a month. Can you talk about that sort of revenue model, about how you're doing sort of gateway as a service or whatever?
Yeah. So as I mentioned in the video, literally everything we're doing is completely open source, and so that's an interesting, even on the commercial side. So that's an interesting decision that we've made, and it's one that I continue to not necessarily know if it's the right one, because I see other people not doing that. I see lots of people, even people who are very strong on the open source ethos, are concerned because it impedes your ability to make money. Basically, you invite and empower your own competition. I'm sorry, I actually forgot the question. I got off track there.
Revenue model, $7 a month. Like.
Revenue models, yeah, right. So originally we planned on doing a transaction fee-based one, and found that it made us look more like a money transmitter. So we're basically just trying to go with the WordPress model. We're offering hosted services, rented by the month with no commitment, at a very low and approachable price. And anybody who wants to run it themselves, whether they're going to sell it to somebody else or they're going to or they're just going to use it for their own purposes, can just do that. But the load of infrastructure that you need to run in order to accomplish this is not insubstantial. And so we're pretty sure that the vast majority of people are going to at least initially wind up with us. We charge $7 a month nominally. That's our retail price, but it can be as low as $5 for swap bots per month. And then we charge right now $1.25 per redemption slot per month, and in the future that'll go to a flat rate where you'll pay like $5 a month and get 10 slots, and then for every $5 a month you pay, you'll add another 15 or something like that. The wallet is free, but we have a revenue generation part coming up to that will essentially, the reason why we developed Tokenly Pockets, because we have another wallet too called the LTB Companion that is basically the same thing, except that it has different branding and it uses LTB coin as the basic default token, as opposed to the Pockets wallet, which uses Bitcoin. We're going to put a feature into it. Essentially, what I realized when we released our wallet was that literally everybody was going to create their own branded wallet, because why not? There are open source wallets out there, so if it's relatively simple to do that. And so the problem with that is that you wind up with poorly maintained wallets. People pick their favorite wallet based on the project, not based on how it's being maintained. So that's not really a desirable situation. And you don't need it, because the tokens are compatible, and you can have thousands of different types of tokens in a single wallet, so it's totally redundant. So what we're going to offer in hopefully 2 or 3 weeks with the Tokenly Pockets wallet is the ability to custom brand any coin, basically. So you'll pay like $5 a month or something like that, and from within the wallet you'll be able to upload a skin file. And also populate an information page that can have links on it, so that, and again, this will be a service that people will pay for and rent by the month, with the idea being that anybody who has a token should be able to cheaply give their users a branded experience when they are using the token. So the way that the wallets work is that you select the type of token that you want to interact with, and then that is the token that is in your wallet. So when you have, my token in your wallet for my consulting, then it would have, my consulting redemption information for the official one, and but at the same time, somebody else could choose to pay for this too, and they could put up their own bots that have the thing. So one of the nice parts about running the infrastructure for SwapBot is that we actually control the private keys for those vending machines, so we can give a large amount of assurance that anything that gets listed there right now that's a SwapBot that's hosted by us does definitely have these rules where it doesn't really, like, the deal that's offered is the deal that will be responded to in the logic, because the same literal line dictates both. So we really tried to build the SwapBots in such a way so that it was going to be hard to create fraudulent ones, but of course people will eventually do it, because that happens with everything.
Huh. Son of a gun.
Yeah.
What about the
I remember reading on the LTB forum a little while ago about token societies, and the idea of because I mean we're like a clubhouse basically, right? Like
Yeah.
We're a toking society. Just kidding. That was a joke. That was a joke. We're in Vancouver. It's a Vancouver joke. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Cam. Sorry. toking societies.
Well, yeah, no. I'm just wondering, like, have you thought about how this might benefit meat space? Like I guess because with LTB, you pay people LTB coin to do articles, right? So.
Yeah. So so we have a rewards program. Token Societies is essentially what we call our private forum system. So that's been going on for about a year now. We're about to roll out next month a complete redesign of the website. We haven't done a redesign now in a little bit over a year. And our first version, again, like we've basically been in prototype mode since we launched LTB. So I'm excited that we're going to be taking some of these features that we've built and kind of just strapped on wherever we could and making them more integrated. As far as so I have another idea that is on the roadmap for Tokenly, but that we haven't gotten to yet, that I call MetaNote. And basically the idea is it's token control access that is disintermediated from the website that it is on. And instead, it effectively lets you control a communication layer, or in reality, many communication layers. So like the idea here, and the reason why I originally thought of it is like a comedian could not have a website. They could just have a vending machine where they promote themselves and sell their token. People put it in their token, and then the website is basically just a list of all of the different places that this comedian frequents. And whenever you visit that page, you can click on this. Again, it would be a browser extension. You click on it, and you can leave a note for anybody based on the token that you have. So if you have a vegetarian coin, then you can leave notes that can be viewed by anybody who has vegetarian coin on any website on the internet. And it can be granular too. So like you could have it so that somebody who has 10 vegetarian coins can see things, can post up to 10 vegetarian ranks, and then can read everything up to 10, but can't see anything that's at 11 and can't post at 11. And so you can kind of create these natural uses of tokens that have nothing to do with actual use. They just have to do with status, basically. Status that is transmissible and status that indicates interest groups. And I think that that's where we're going. I mean, the thing about the internet is that it hasn't, I mean, it ties us together in a way, but it gives us the ability to completely ignore anybody who doesn't completely agree with us or who we don't think is, the most valuable person for us to spend time with. So this just kind of takes that concept and it takes it away from a specific website and just says, this is about a personality type, or this is about a predilection. Anybody who thinks that this is funny, let's go talk about it there. And it's great because they can't see it, the people on the website, it's not actually on their website, and yet you're still able to do this. So I thought that's kind of a cool expansion for where we might go from token societies, and it's the sort of thing is I think that what you wind up with is privacy in public, and that's a really, really desirable thing as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, talking about cool, Adam, what's we've been wondering what the poster is behind your head the whole time you've been talking. What's that poster behind you? On the wall. Oh, look at that! Isn't that something? And over your shoulder, and over your other shoulder, is that an Oculus box on the top shelf?
Yeah.
Fuck, I win, guys. Nice. Yeah, buddy. So
yeah, well, again, so I did an episode with Wendell Davis from Hivewall I guess it's almost a year ago now, in September last year, on what we called crypto VR. And again, like the possibilities when you combine virtual reality and cryptocurrency and explicitly tokens, again, is really, really wild. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we got a guy in town. His name's Carl White, and he actually only wears white because that's his last name. But him and another dude, Joseph Malone, who's actually pretty excellent as well. He's from the Eastern Seaboard. They're developing an app that allows you to do that when you're in virtual reality world to like use tokens in VR. You know what I'm saying? So it's
awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of something that's happening at a local level.
We have to scan QRs though.
What's that?
It will be hard to scan QRs though in virtual reality.
Yeah, QR. Yeah, that's really funny actually.
Well, interfaces are coming along a lot. I mean, there's a guy named David Holzman. Who's I think the CTO at a company called Leap Motion, which does I have one around here somewhere, but I don't know what it is. Anyways, they're like these little hand tracking motion cameras, and they're really, really neat. And you can strap them on the front of an Oculus Rift, and it essentially gives you hand tracking that's wider than your line of sight. So it's so anyways, he's got a couple of talks that he's given in the last month, and they're really, really, really interesting. He thinks basically that we're going to get, we're going to move about 10 years ahead in terms of where we think we are right now, because there's so much simultaneous development going on. Like the level 3 stuff is being developed right now at the same time that the level 1 stuff is about to come out in retail, at the end of this year. So the progression from the really basic virtual reality to the insane virtual reality is only going to take a couple of years.
Dude, that's so fucking cool.
I'm scared about what 4chan is going to look like if it's a room you can walk into and see.
Do we have any other questions for Adam, guys? Because he's got, he's probably got, another life he wants to get back to. But
well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm probably going to rant at you about one of our use cases, actually.
Yeah,
Please do it.
Okay.
Wait, Peter's got a question.
Yeah.
Your favorite?
How much are your trading bots like Smart Oracle, something like Codius and so on? Because some of the use cases you mentioned were just simple, trade this for that. But some of them are a bit more complicated. If something happens, then perform its operation and so on and so on. So I'm wondering how much you've developed the sort of programmability of those trading bots.
None. They're not programmable at all right now. They have very basic logic. You can do income forwarding. You can do swaps of various kinds. We have US dollar tracking to determine a Bitcoin price, and a couple of other things like that. We're integrating CoinCap.io, which is like CoinMarketCap, but they have a slightly better API as far as we're concerned, because CoinMarketCap doesn't publish an official one that will let us track every counterparty token that is currently traded on a market. But yeah, it's we're just really, really early with this. We're at the very, I call it the pickup stage, pickup stick stage. It's very, very, very simple, and the logic. I mean, the nice thing about it is that at the point that we get to the logic, that's really all it is. It's just like, what is the difference between a vending machine as we have it now and a vending machine that can do Kickstarter style, crowdfunding? Well, the difference is that the Kickstarter style crowdfunding one needs to be able to know at what point it's successfully funded. It needs to be able to issue the token. It needs to be able to distribute the token automatically. It needs to be able to handle refunds if it doesn't fulfill properly. There are a variety of things, but they're all actually really simple. And once you've done it for one bot, well, you've actually done the logic for all of the bots. You just need to change the variables and apply them to a different bot. So, and again, the project's open source. So if somebody wants to go through and create all that logic now, then you certainly could do it. And we're starting to see our first open source contributions. We had our first open source contribution a month and a half ago in a very minor component, and now we have the folding and home team has essentially dedicated a developer for the last several weeks to integrating price tracking in our redemption system so they can use it in their store. So, yeah.
That's cool. That's super cool. All right, so Peter has left the room. So now the questions are dissolved, and we're going back to your use case scenario that you're going to tell us about. Let's hear about it.
Yeah. So everybody's familiar with Audible? I like this example. It's a good one. So Audible, I don't know how many of you actually know how Audible works on the back end, but basically you are purchasing credits from them, and you purchase them. They like you to subscribe. It's an Amazon company, so you subscribe, you pay like $10 or $14 a month, and you get 2 book credits, and you can trade in 1 book credit for almost any book, unless it's like literally 40 or 50 hours long. 1 book credit is going to get you a 5-hour book. 1 book credit is going to get you a 30-hour book. And the reason why they can do this is because the agreement that Audible has with its publishers, or rather with its content creators, is a percentage-based split. And Audible takes, under most circumstances, 50% of the split, and then the author and the narrator negotiate how to deal with the other 50%. And so this means, again, that if Audible sells the book for $10 and it's a $30 book, well, they don't really care because they sold a book, they get paid, and the author who had the $30 book, they're the ones that winds up getting screwed. So Audible has already a tokenized system. You can't download an MP3 for a Audible book. You have to download their application, and then within their application environment, your identity essentially gets you in to access whatever your identity owns. So you could take that concept and very simply pivot it so that the Audible as a platform becomes just that. They become a platform where instead of being like this monopolizing force, instead they don't even interact with people who list audiobooks and sell them. All they do is they create an interface that lets people register their book, register the token it's supposed to attach to, then they can sell the token however they want. Audible can choose to buy the token at bulk discount rates if they want to buy it and sell it themselves, but otherwise it doesn't matter to them at all. So in this case, the content creator actually winds up paying the platform a small amount of money because the platform is delivering a service. It's delivering the content to whomever it is. It's good for the platform because more good content means that there's more reason to use the application. It's good for the platform because they no longer have to pick what's a good book and what's a bad book and maybe potentially be wrong on either count. And it's good for, I mean, again, like you can go down the list and there are just a ridiculous number of people who this improves the situation for. The only people it's bad for is Audible, in that they no longer collect 50% of literally everything that goes through the platform. They no longer have the monopoly that allows them to command that monopoly rate. An interesting thing to think about is how there's no conception of a used bookstore that sells used Audible books, because you're never buying a book. You're only, or an audiobook. You're only buying a license to it that then is owned by your identity, which you can then access, but you don't actually own it. So adding a token in here means that that's not true. And so when somebody gets done with a book or gets tired of a book, why can't they sell it back to somebody else? Because again, you have no ability to create infinite copies, and so there's not actually a problem with giving people real ownership, because to share it with somebody else, whether you're lending it to them, selling it to them, giving it to them, means that you necessarily lose access. And so there's not actually any difference anymore between a physical book and a digital book. And so, like, another thing that's really interesting about this is that you can think about an independent bookstore. And an independent bookstore right now in the physical world has to make choices about what inventory they will take possession of. Because somebody can't buy people want immediacy, and you can't buy a book if you don't, if you don't have the book in stock to sell, or you can't sell a book if you don't have it in stock to sell. So essentially what you can do is by having the platform issue, again, just like the credit, a book token, then the platform can sell those book tokens, and if people choose, people can essentially choose to offer their particular product in different prices for that book token. So that means that an independent bookstore actually doesn't have to buy inventory anymore. All they have to do is buy a whole bunch of these book tokens and then sell the books to whoever wants to buy them, whatever book they want to buy at whatever price in whatever currency they want to buy, and then the bookstore redeems the book tokens and whatever amount is required on behalf of the customer, pockets the actual money that they've been paid, and the platform delivers the book directly to the customer on their behalf. So again, like, there are just all of these things that can't exist if you don't have ownership at this kind of basic core, it's in your hand or it's not in your hand level. And by introducing that, you essentially take all of these platforms that are monopolistic, and you make it so they're services, and they have to compete is the other thing, because if I as an author can choose whether to list at Audible or something else, or I can list at both, then I have choices. Choices mean that people don't pick bad options. You only pick bad options when you don't have choices.
Oh man, I know all about that. Okay, so you got a question about that?
So I think the model you're proposing is something like GameStop or EB Games was doing for the used games, physical games, for a long while. That's something that other people from the gaming industry are really against, because it cuts into their bottom line and so on and so on. It's like, that the stores will be pushing you the used say copies or whatever, because they earn more money on that. They screw over the customer by just paying them a couple cents on the dollar for the games and so on and so on. It's like, I'm not sure that might be the desirable model for a lot of people, but
I don't disagree with you. There are definitely, again, like, if you're talking about large companies right now that are perfectly happy having this type of relationship, then you're totally right. But again, having the possibility there to have this type of relationship means that it's possible to start companies and raise money that don't use that type of model, that take the view that empowering their customers is the correct approach. And that, yes, of course, we're giving up our monopolistic practice, but it means that we are actually engaging more and have to be more responsive. It means that it stops being about product and starts largely being about service. So, I mean, that's more true with certain things, like Audible. That's more true with Audible than it is with the game developers. But again, if you look at how games are priced, they lose value incredibly fast in the market already. And so, if you, well, okay, so on games, there's another angle. I actually have a published use case on this. If you want to go to tokenly.com, it's this, at some point, it's the second article down that effectively makes the argument that people should be using token-controlled access to do software licenses and essentially reinvent shareware, where like there's only one copy of the software. There's not a demo version and a full version. There's just one, and if you don't have the token, then it's the demo version. And if you do have the token, or if you have, there might be a token per feature or whatever, it's the second one down. Then you can't. And so what that does effectively is it makes it so that software suddenly has scarcity built into it, because the scarcity isn't forced into the software, but it's managed by the token. And it means, again, that you could have a platform like Steam, for example, where every game in the library, you could actually sell that game if you didn't want it, and it would create a robust secondary market for these games. So yeah, it's a bit of a read, but
yeah, no, dude, you photograph really nice in your little bio shots. Yeah, so that's really cool. And we were talking about books before, and I'm kind of the party question guy sometimes. What books do you read? Books? Have you read one recently? And what's your latest read?
I just read. Oh gosh, I gotta look it up. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
My favorite books. I'll tell you my favorite books. My favorite books in the last couple of years has been Starfish and the Spider. It's The Unstoppable Power of Leaderless Organizations. That book, if you haven't read it, it's not that long of a book, and it's incredibly informative, and it's a very easy, entertaining read that uses lots of historical anecdotes to make the points. And then The Master Switch by Tim Wu, which talks essentially, again, about the history of technology, and almost more importantly, the history of government intervention and disruption into technology and monopolies too. And because the history of America, in large part, is a history of monopolies, mostly sanctioned by government and helped enforced by regulation. So it's not a new thing. That's been going on for almost 100 years. Well, and actually much longer than that. But
yeah, I think the British were into it too, with and the East Indian Tea Company and Hudson Bay Company here in Canada. They actually called them,
man.
Yeah, they called them charters. I think back then it was a charter you were issued for your company.
Yeah.
Any questions for Adam?
Yes. What was the name of the first book you said you read recently?
The Starfish and the Spider.
Starfish and the Spider.
Yeah.
What was the second?
Starfish
book?
and the Spider. The second one, The Master Switch.
Crazy.
Master Switch.
The Master Switch.
Switch. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's pretty sexy. Some pretty sexy titles there. Yeah.
Adam, when are we gonna see Doge Ethereum surface?
Oh yeah, Adam, what's up with Doge Ethereum?
Doge Ethereum? I have no idea. I haven't even heard of that.
It was Doge Party.
So it was
Doge Party. Doge Party is something I participated in, and I've been getting into scuffles with people on Counterparty. Not, sorry.
The future of
Anyways. Yeah, so we started Doge Party because one of the companies that I was involved with, Human, had this idea that we wanted to push forward on, and actually launching Doge Party sort of contributed to the demise of Human as a going concern, because it was quite a stressful endeavor. That we figured it was going to be easy to fork Counterparty, or not easy, but not that hard. And in practice, it wound up being way more complicated than just changing some variables. So that was, so I've learned to, again, be a little more conservative with the things that I get behind the launch, because even when people say that it's going to be easy, I've discovered that development is never easy, and it's always more complicated, because you get into it and then you find the little problems, and then those problems lead to more problems, and it's just a mess. Doge Party we started because there was an idea at Human that everybody was very much pushing for, pretty much except for me. I never really thought it was a good idea because I don't use social media, of having a unique token for every user on Twitter. And we were going to start on Bitcoin with Counterparty and give them out to people who had more than 20,000 followers, and get everybody to tip and do all of that stuff. And again, I'm not a big fan of social media. I really like these, there's utility, there's a thing you can do with it besides, hey, I have this token that has this name. So, but the reason why we created Doge Party was exactly that, was because it would have been simply too expensive no matter what we did to do it on Bitcoin. And Doge Party offered not just an order of magnitude cheaper, but also much faster transactions. In practice, since I started with Tokenly, I've discovered that confirmation times are almost completely irrelevant, because you have to abstract them away, even if it's a minute. You don't even want your user to wait, a minute for a Dogecoin block. You actually just want to make sure that they've properly sent the thing, that it looks like it's on the network, and then essentially be able to follow up with them if something goes wrong. But otherwise, you want to get them out of there as quickly as possible. So, like when I do that demo, it's less than a minute, the vast majority of the time, going from hitting the page to actually having finished making the purchase. And I think that's a huge accomplishment that we worked very hard for, and I'm very happy about working it in this fashion. So,
super.
This has been my first time with software development, and I'm not a developer. I'm just the guy with the ideas, talks, and I also was the guy who brought the money to the table in this case. But yeah, no, it's been a really interesting last year for me, kind of making this transition into being just somebody who comments on this stuff to somebody who really has a deeper level of understanding about exactly how difficult it all is. It's really
Well, I mean, you're kind of in the right place, because you kind of get to hear everything almost. You know what I mean? So it's like you're at the bazaar, you're at the markets, you're just picking at the products that you see as being winners. You know what I'm saying? It's a privileged place you're in, man. Really.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. It is a privileged place that I'm in, and I've been very careful to preserve that. I've been very careful not to overextend myself, not to put myself in situations where I was going to damage my reputation or the reputation of Let's Talk Bitcoin. And to a large degree, we've turned down a lot of money over the in the past because I valued that reputation so highly. So yeah, I think I'm doing pretty good. All things considered. I didn't think I was going to be doing this 5 years ago. This is very different than what I thought would be.
Yeah, right. It's good.
So who's working on these open source libraries you guys are building for this Tokenly project? Do you have minions?
Yeah. I don't have minions. I have co-founders. We're talking with who might essentially be our first non-equity, contractor to do some additional work. Well, actually, that's not true. We have a designer who we contract with, and we have a graphic designer, then an artist who we contract with. But all of the work on the actual coding has been done by Nick Rathman, who's been with First Let's Talk Bitcoin since I think about February of 2014 was when he started working on the content management system for us, and so he's the chief architect of the platform, and he's the chief architect at Tokenly. And then Devin Weller, who is an older developer who's got a lot more experience, and Nick is really young. Nick's like 22 or 23. So it's I think that the way that I've done things, and Cameron again can back me up on this, I'm not always tremendously responsive, and it's because I tend to get overwhelmed. And the people who I wind up getting to know a lot are people who kind of deal with that and stick with it, and don't go away and are really self-motivated and are so you have to run a gauntlet in order to work with me in a very real way. And so because of that, the people who I have working with me are not only really talented, but they're very self-motivated. And so all I really have to do is just kind of just lay out the vision. That's really, I called myself a chief visionary officer for a long time. And I think that that's it, is that there are so many options with ways we can go. There are no best practices. There's not really anything to learn from yet. So it's kind of the way that I take it is you have to take a couple of steps forward, then you look around and you analyze and you try to make sure you didn't step in anything bad. And then a couple of steps forward after that, and you always got to backtrack, and everything always takes longer. But, it's progress. And, the amount of money that I've spent on this relative to trying to do something like this before there was something like Counterparty or before there was something like Bitcoin is pennies. It's like not even pennies. It's ridiculous how little money, relatively speaking, something like what we're doing costs to do. And even if we fail, we're still adding all of this to the repository of knowledge. So if the point is to add utility, then I think that we're on the right path. So whether my vision winds up being correct is anybody's guess. But whether we do or not, we're still adding to this. And so far, I've gotten a very, very positive response from really everybody who I've talked to about this. And we've had some very high-level meetings with, some other major projects in the space that don't integrate tokens, don't know anything about tokens at all, but lack the use of tokens, lack the ability to sell tickets. Streamium is an interesting example of this. If you look at their page, like imagine if they had stream name, cash out address, price rate, and then a fourth column, which is access token. And the user creating the stream designates the token, and then they just check. And it's, I mean, like, again, like, there's no concept of a ticket, but you add tokens, and it's suddenly really easy, and the platform isn't responsible for it. It's totally decentralized to the individuals. So, yeah. I'm in love with this stuff.
We are too, actually. Cam and I love it. I mean, actually, everybody in this room, a couple of people are a little bit newer, but Peter here is, you know, he wrote his master's thesis in it years ago, and Kiko got in pretty freaking early, and he's happily, you know, our chief experimental officer down here now as a result, basically. You know what I mean? So like, it's just, we're all very fortunate, and like you said, there's nothing we can really follow except our own intuition and reasoning patterns. You know what I'm saying? It's so fucking awesome, man. It really, really is. It's so great.
It's like a world of low-hanging fruit for a while yet. You know, eventually the opportunities are going to get taken, but we got a couple of years here where anybody can do just about anything. The thing that you need is time, you need vision, or you just need some skills. I mean, you don't even need to have all of those components. You just need to be able to find where you fit in. Another thing that is worth mentioning is I'm not necessarily invested in the technology that we are using right now. And I mention this explicitly because some people feel like, you know, I do a show called Let's Talk Bitcoin, and so I'm all about Bitcoin or something like that. The reality is that I am interested in Bitcoin because I am interested in the solutions that it offers that are not available with other types of technology. And I think that it's very important that people have that perspective where they are invested in the particular solutions that they think are important regardless of the technology, because being focused on the technology means that you're blind to anything better that comes along, and it means that you are effectively, you know, like you've tainted yourself. You've made it so that your opinion is not your opinion is your money's opinion and what you think is best for your money. So, you know, it's an interesting perspective to take, I think, in an increasingly polarized world of cryptocurrency. But
yeah, you're basically agnostic, is what you're saying. You're agnostic, right?
You know, I'm solution oriented and, you know, method agnostic. Basically, we're working with the reason why we're working with Counterparty is because it works, and because at the time it was the best option. And so far to this point, I haven't felt like we made a mistake. You know, in a year, who knows? I mean, Ethereum could be a big, major thing. And again, that's another one of those situations where we wouldn't have to, you know, have swap bots as software. We would have swap bots that are just smart contracts and be able to just use them like that. So, you know, the solution is what's important. How we get there, you know, who cares what color the wheels are?
Interesting. Interesting. I think, you know, I think we've done pretty good today, Adam. It looks like we've done pretty good, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
I think we should leave it on a high note because that's always a good way to go. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, let's give this gentleman a round of applause, everybody. All right. And I don't know if you got to meet Eleanor yet, my kitten here on the lap. She just had two babies a little while ago. And they were just named last week, Denny and Grace. So there you go. Okay. Adam, welcome. Thank you for having us, you know, letting us into your life, and welcome to the family. And hopefully we'll be able to talk to you again sometime soon.
Of course.
All right. So we'll be telling everybody about Tokenly, and we'll be listening to your shows and seeing what's going on with you in the near future. Thanks again.
So on that note, let me just mention, I just rolled out a new show. Because we've done almost 250 episodes of Let's Talk Bitcoin over the last 2 years, a little bit over 2 years now. But I've just rolled out a new show. The second episode's coming out this Sunday. It's called The New Renaissance, essentially. And It's more of a meta show that talks about essentially the intersection between all of these different technologies that we consider essentially enabling technologies. And virtual reality is one of them, additive manufacturing, you know, automation, autonomous vehicles, drones, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency in general, all of these different things. So yeah, I mean, you know, Bitcoin's interesting, but the picture is much bigger, and Bitcoin really is just a component in, again, this much larger movement that's happening.
Cool, man. It's an enabler.
Yep.
Mr. Levine, have a beautiful evening, sir. And
You too, guys.
All right.
Cheers.
Ciao. Nice. That was the best.